Hey everyone, I hope you are having a wonderful day so far. I am just dropping this special little clip into all the episodes. So, no matter what episode you're listening to, this is actually pretty current as of July 2024. I wanted to come on here and just say a big thank you to Earworthy because the Life Shift podcast was just named the best overall podcast of the year in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. And you've probably seen some articles written about the Life Shift podcast before, written by Earworthy. And now he is launching from his online publication, he is launching these yearly winners of independent podcast awards. And these are specifically for indie podcasters. We are those that wear all the hats. We create the show. Some people write the show. We're producers, sound engineers. We troubleshoot all the tech. We do any kind of research if we need to. We host the shows. We distribute the shows. We do all the things that relate to our shows because we love it. And it's so nice to see my name in a list with some other amazing podcasts like Multispective, which won Best Life Lessons Podcast. Salad with a Side of Fries won Best Health Podcast. Bippity Boppity Business won Best Business Advice Podcast. And there are so many more. And so I just want to come on here and say thank you to Earworthy for not only doing these awards every year and just honoring some of us indie podcasters that sometimes feel like we're just shouting into the void, but we're not. We're just doing what brings us joy, and hopefully through that work it brings other people joy. In my case, for the Life Shift, I hope that each episode finds the ears that needed to hear it the most so that they feel a little less alone in their circumstance. But also, Earworthy writes all these amazing publications pretty much weekly, every week, every weekday, I should say, where he writes on Blogger, Medium, Substack, Tumblr, Vocal, Many Stories, and for other places. And he really just highlights the independent podcasters. So thank you, Frank, for everything you do with Earworthy and for recognizing all of us in the first Earworthy Independent Podcast Awards. If you'd like to read more, please head to medium.com/EAR hyphen WORTHY. Thanks again and enjoy this episode. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that change lives forever. Hello, my friends. I am here with my friend Morgan, who's joining us from Germany?
Yeah, Germany.
Is that where we are these days?
These days,
It looks very bright there.
Well, only for the next few hours. We're getting longer on the days, but we lose like quickly here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks really nice. Yeah. Whatever's happening there, the color of the sun hitting your face looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Morgan and I were just talking a little bit before we started recording, and we were talking about how we know each other. So she knows what year it was because it was a blip in time. When was that?
98 to no, just kidding. 97 to 98. Seems so long ago.
Right. Yeah. Well, most of the people that I'm talking to on this podcast so far go back to high school years. I actually talked to my third grade best friend. And so when we talked about it, we were like 1989. Oh, yeah. So 97 sounds pretty recent in this case.
Yeah. I don't feel like it's much past that either. So, I mean,
but you know what? 1997, and we were only in each other's lives for a year, probably less than a year, right?
Sure.
Like a small amount of time.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to some of my friends, and we've talked about social media and the ability to stay connected with people that you clicked with, way back when, and to just kind of keep tabs on people. And I feel like I've been able to do that with you, even though we don't actively
check in, but I don't think you have to.
Right.
Yeah. When you feel like you've clicked with somebody, you lose that judgment of, okay, I need to always click and connect, and instead you're just happy. My husband even said, "Oh, is that the guy that moved out to the Midwest for a while?" I was like, "That's totally him." So I talk about you too. It's like, we don't talk much, but I happen to talk about you often too.
No, and I've been watching your journey, and I'm so glad that you're on here to share a little bit about it, because I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. My goal with this podcast is truly to highlight the pivotal moments that have changed people's lives completely, but also to allow the space for someone to, one, share their story, but two, for people listening to know that they're not alone and to know that there is a community. And I've talked to people about really positive, shifts or things that have kicked them into high gear. And I've also talked to people about things that have drastically changed their lives, which in a seemingly tough moment, yet at the end of the day, have found ways to really create the life that they probably wanted to create all along. So it's been a really interesting journey. So I'm really glad that you're here to share.
I'm glad you're doing it. I think it's very necessary right now. So thank you.
Well, I'm excited about it. It's really, these conversations are really warming my heart. I know I've said that to you, and I didn't realize how much creating this podcast would change me. I've gone through my own life shifts and things along the way, and I've always been open about them. And your pivotal moment that I think we're going to be talking about, you were quite open about it, and I connected immediately to that. So before we talk about that time in your life, can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like leading up to that time, and kind of who you are and what's going on?
Yeah. So I, I mean, my gosh, where do you even begin? Wrap it into, I'm a military spouse, so we do not stay in one spot more than about 2 to 3 years. I had many moves under my belt. I've lived in many countries, many different states. I've seen incredible things, but with that is pretty stressful too. My husband was deployed twice to Iraq. He was gone a bit, and the stress of moving. And I was an entrepreneur, and I was trying to do that from afar and raise a family. And so things were quite stressful in my life at that point. I was living in Italy, and that wasn't stressful. That was like the first time I felt like, wow, I feel home here. But things were kind of still unstable. I started to feel like things were falling apart. Yeah. And I was pregnant with my second child too. And
To add to that stress.
My husband and my relationship weren't great. Yeah, it was so many things that I think has finally culminated after 36 years of a lot of stress and abuse and lack of self-care. Yeah, things were just not good.
Do you think, before we go into that, you mentioned lack of self-care. Do you think that is more common in our generation and people growing up in the 80s and 90s?
I think it is not practiced nearly enough. I grew up being told, if my parents were divorced, and my dad would always say, I have to take care of myself, because if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of anybody else. And it was always just something I heard, but I didn't listen to it. I wasn't really understanding what that was. And so I didn't really do it. I mean, mind, body, soul is taking care of yourself. And if you neglect one of those things, then the other things will feel unbalanced and just fall away too. And as a society, we just don't do it. We rush, rush, rush. We want to make money, money, money. The best grades, the best cars, like people get so consumed with everything else and neglect themselves. Yeah.
You were doing the checklist life. I feel like that's what my life was. It was very much like, okay, you have to do well in high school so that you can go to the good college. And then you're going to do well in college so that you can get the good job.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get the good job, then you need to get promoted.
Yeah.
So it was very much like
check.
Yeah. And in these conversations, so many of my conversations have been with people that are in our generation. And so that's why I was curious if you think it's generational, because I feel like nowadays people are more aware than before, maybe not as much as they should be, but more self-aware, more self-care, especially over the last 2 years of the pandemic. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. And I'm looking at it as the Great Awakening. People are waking up and they're realizing they're waking up from what they thought was a dream, right? But only to realize maybe it's kind of a nightmare and we can make it a dream. And I mean, hello, think about what has preceded and then been present right now. The Great Reset. You can call it the Great Reset. People are waking up and it's time in large quantities, because we couldn't keep going along the same way we were going. Yeah. So it was time. We are starting, this generation is really, I think, starting to wake up fast. And it's amazing.
I've always been someone that's, hard on my sleeve. I'm going to share everything. And so it's nice to see that more and more people are feeling confident in that and not scared to be a human, instead of a cog. Right.
Showing like a literal vulnerability. I mean, we're taught like, don't show vulnerability. Like, you show weakness.
Right.
But yeah.
Men can't cry.
Can't cry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I enjoy a good cry. I'm just going to put that out there. I need that.
Yeah. You have to. It's a release.
Right.
Everybody needs to.
So what are we talking, like 5 or 6 years ago?
Actually, almost. Now, I had just given birth, actually. Things were going on. The pregnancy was really hard. Things were going on in my body, but we kind of just said, oh, it's pregnancy. But before that, leading up to that, I had other things happening. I felt my body kind of falling apart piece by piece, and things like I thought I was a freaking hypochondriac. Like, I was always going to the doctor and I would say, this is wrong with me. And they're like, oh, it's this. So fast forward, I have my son and in August. So August will be 5 years. And forgive me if I cry. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on where I am in my headspace right now.
Like we just said, crying is important and it's part of humanity, and honor it.
I try, but I think, how many times do I have to cry about this? And then my higher self goes, well, as many times as you need.
Exactly.
So I put my son down to sleep in a nap, and I turn a sound machine on every time he would fall asleep, because he was like a rotten sleeper. And if he heard anything, he would just wake up. So sound machine necessary, turn it on. So I lay him down and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that sound machine's not on. And so I turn my head, I'm like, oh, man, I must have a short. I thought I had a short. It's on. And I lean back to my son and I go to give him a kiss, and I'm like, that darn thing's off again. And I whip my head around and I hear it's not off. It's on. I couldn't hear anything from my left side of my ear all of a sudden. And I thought, oh my God, that's not normal. And I raced to the other room. And my mom had lost her hearing in one ear a number of moons ago. And I thought, oh my God, they said this wasn't, hereditary. Is this hereditary? Am I losing my hearing? Am I becoming deaf? And I immediately got on the phone with the doctor and I ran into the base, called my husband. I'm like, I've got to go to the doctor. And long story short, they say, oh, it's a sinus infection. It's, postpartum. They tried to tell me I lost my hearing because I had just had a son and, or a child, basically. I was stressed. And I'm going, none of this is feeling right. And they sent me home, and I said, I don't like this. And so I requested to go see a hearing doctor, an audiologist on the economy in Italy. And after a couple of days, I went into the audiologist and he confirmed everything. I had no hearing. It was very minimal. And he gave me like steroid injections. And he says, maybe a few days by the beach will do, with some steroid injections, relax, rest. And I went to Spain. I went to Barcelona that weekend. And as I'm in Barcelona, I started to deteriorate even more. I was walking around like I was drunk. And I mean, I hadn't even had any sangria yet. So I was just
right. Yeah.
like, come on. Yeah. I was like, at least let me get some of that, into the system. Why am I so weird looking? And then I couldn't talk. All of a sudden, my husband said like he couldn't understand anything coming out of my mouth, really. I would like trip over my words. And then I would, my hands were a bit shaky. Like things were just not normal.
Right. And these weren't happening prior to this in little blips or anything. These are all new.
Like this, like one after the other, very quickly. And when I got back from Barcelona, I told my husband, I said, I've got to push to get an MRI. Something is wrong. The doctor said, sure, go in for an MRI. And we all do dumb things, and it's called Google what's wrong.
Right. Yeah. Don't do it.
Shouldn't do it. But, in my mind, I'm like, do I have a brain tumor? I couldn't really get past anything but that. I was just, please, I just had a son. I just have a daughter. Please, nothing. Don't let it be a brain tumor. And I go in for this lovely MRI, and 2 days later, they call me. The nurse calls, and she says, there's something. It's like, and can you give me a little more? No, you have to come in. And I'm thinking, that's not good. Like it's not good. And I said, you have to give me a little more. And she said, well, it's not super, super serious, but it's serious enough. And I thought, yeah. So here I go, driving to base again. And I give my records to a nurse friend of mine as I'm waiting to see the doctor. And she just looks at me and she starts crying. And all of a sudden, I knew, because one of the other things other than a brain tumor were lesions on the brain. And she's like, you have MS. And I said, MS? She goes, multiple sclerosis. And I went, no, that's not right. How could that be? And through a lot of, pain and
you were in your 30s at the time, right?
I was 36. I had just turned 36.
We don't hear enough about MS. And so, no, I'm 30.
No, the only thing I knew about it is Richard Pryor had it. It's
right.
like it.
Yeah, you don't. And even now, you don't hear too many. You hear a little bit more, but you don't hear too many people publicly speaking about it.
But do you know how common it is? It is so common. And people get misdiagnosed all the time with other things. It's rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. It's an autoimmune disease. And essentially it can, and they say will eventually take your life. And depending on the type you have, it depicts the journey. It tells you what the journey is going to be. It's a very deteriorating disease. And I was officially diagnosed in October. And the doctor basically said, you're going to have to be on drugs the rest of your life. And you're going to have to hope that things don't progress quickly and get a hearing aid. And good luck. And that was it.
Yeah, your life completely changed in the 10 words that he shared with you.
Yeah.
Or even your friend next to you.
Yeah. I was told over a video teleconferencing appointment because they were in Landstuhl, which is further in Germany, and I was in Italy. And I'll never forget how when you receive news, like life-altering news, and you're looking at a computer screen and you're seeing this doctor basically, say, I'm really sorry to inform you, and
right. Just very matter of fact.
Yeah, it was pretty profound. And I looked over and my husband was sitting beside me and I could see him just starting to cry. And then even the guy running the video teleconferencing just kind of had this look on his face and you could see his eyes start to well up and everything stopped. Like the world just stopped. You ever have a moment where it just stops, Matt?
Yeah. I have, not quite so personal, I guess, in the case of yours, but yeah, when I found out my mom was dead, or when I watched my grandmother die, everything stopped. For me, everything stopped. It wasn't a long period of time, but it was it was profound enough that I can remember those precise moments, but
Yeah.
nothing quite as internal as yours, I would
Well, no,
imagine.
I wouldn't do that. I don't detract from it. I think those are like some of our most present moments,
Yep.
and they're gifts. And
Yes.
we don't unpackage them right then, but we remember the present, right? And then, we have time afterwards to kind of unpack it. And it took me a few months in a very dark hole to unpack it. Yeah, but those moments are like so profound. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking back on that moment, what are you most grateful for that silence, that stop, if there is anything?
Yeah, there was. I think there was a little bit of relief.
Because of an answer?
Yeah, because of an answer, because I had so many symptoms for years. My husband used to say my favorite activity was sleeping. I mean, that's not, normal. It just, I would sleep so much. Yeah, but just look, and how many times I went to the doctor with actual ailments that were indicators for MS.
Right.
But
Yeah.
just knowing that in that moment, my world and life, no matter what it was going to be, was going to change. And I didn't want to focus on anything else at that moment in time other than I heard the answer. I heard what the problem is. And now I need to let it sit for a minute before I start losing my ever living mind.
Right, because we were programmed to panic when
Yeah.
you get bad news, but I can understand I don't know if relief is the right word, but to get an answer,
Yeah.
because I think with answers, or at least with a diagnosis, you can move forward in some kind of knowledge. You can move forward with,
Healing.
yeah, you can find a way, versus the years and years of you having symptoms and being told to take this steroid shot, or it's a sinus infection, or you just had a baby, so therefore you lost your hearing. Like, those things don't quite make sense, and you can't really do anything with them, right? You can't move forward with any of those answers from the doctors. But with a diagnosis, at least okay, here's what a potential path is going to look
Right.
like. Here's maybe how I can attack this or move forward.
Yeah.
And live.
And live. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the best part about all of it is that the path forward, just like our checklist we were talking about in life, it's a checklist for a lot of people. And it's only when you look outside of that checklist and make your own checklist that you truly are able to live your life. And I decided that I wasn't going to go by the checklist that they wanted me to go by. I believed there is another way. There is another path. There's another checklist. And I'm going to make my own darn checklist and walk down my own path. And I am going to prove so many people wrong that it's going to be life-changing for myself, for my children, for my family, for friends, for anybody that needs the life-changing example. And
Right.
I completely took doctors by surprise. My hearing is back. I lost 70 pounds. I walk fine. I talk fine. All of my symptoms have reversed. And I didn't use one drug to do it. And the doctor said, "This is not possible." Yeah.
He said, I'll show you.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to the point where you were ready to make that new checklist? Because you said that you went through a little bit of a dark period.
Yeah, I would say I went into a pretty dark space for maybe a month. Maybe less, probably 3 weeks, I think. 3 weeks I was in a pretty dark space. And in that time, I started to ask hard questions, really hard questions. Like, how have you been treating yourself? How do you show up in the world? Like, what are you going to get by taking these drugs? Are you feeling like that's the right answer? Like, I really started asking myself, not any doctors, not any other people. And I needed myself to answer some questions before I could then seek answers from other people. And at that time, when I started talking to more and more people about the path that I kind of want to take, and I kept hearing, oh my gosh, you're kind of crazy. I don't know, this is a great idea. I kept thinking, but why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen at this point? So I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that people, that probably felt authentic to you, and people challenging you against it were like, no, this is in my heart. This is how I'm feeling. This is going to work. This is the way I'm going to go. I vividly remember a Facebook Live or a video that you did.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want to say it was like over an hour.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything, right? And I don't think anyone else knew anything. And you went live, or you posted a video of some sort. I want to say, was it live?
It was. Yeah.
It was live. And you shared your diagnosis, and you shared your fears, and you shared so much. And this is that power of connection. The fact that we really only knew each other for a very short period when we were like 16 years old. And I sat there and I watched the entire video and I felt connected. I felt like I haven't felt in a long time. And I think it was the vulnerability. And I think it was like I wanted to be a cheerleader of some sort in some capacity. And I was so proud of you for sharing that dark space, right? Because I don't think we share that enough, and it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
But what was that? Was that helpful for you, that live, what you did there?
Well, what's really interesting is right after that, I actually stopped needing my hearing aid. And I think that was pretty significant that my hearing came back. I felt like it was a very healing thing for me to do, which was to finally tell people, because I kept it kind of secretive. Not that I was ashamed, but maybe just fear over the judgment of the path that I picked, which was all natural path. And there were some naysayers, and it was hard to put myself out there, because you put yourself out there and people are now looking to you to be that example that you're talking about. And I needed to hold myself accountable. And that was me holding myself accountable. It was showing the world that I'm not afraid, that I can listen to myself. And when I listen to myself, I really find the right answers. And I'm okay. I'm going to be okay, because I'm taking care of myself now, and I'm loving myself. And no matter what the journey is, I'm loving the journey too. I'm finding peace in the journey. That diagnosis changed so many things about my life, that if I didn't have that diagnosis, I mean, we all say we wouldn't be the people we are today without our messes, right? Our mess is our message, essentially. But I can't imagine, Matt, there is no other way I would have come to where I am today if I hadn't been diagnosed with MS. And I'm so in love with who I am today. I'm a whole different person. And I thank my MS daily. Thank you.
Because it put things into perspective, probably.
Yeah.
And it created a new path, and how you chose to take that path is probably more authentic than the previous version of you would have been.
Yeah. And people have seen it and they've reached out, and I've been able to help guide people in that same direction. And that is incredible.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I've said it a couple times in some of these conversations of, if people ask me if you could go back and change, your mom not dying. And I say, well, at this point, no, I wouldn't change it because I am who I am because of those moments. And had I not faced significant loss at that age, I wouldn't have the relationships that I have now. I wouldn't be where I am now. And I am happy with who I am now, that I wouldn't change those things. So I can completely relate to, it feels weird to say, to be grateful for such terrible moments, or seemingly on the outside terrible moments that have been part of our lives. So I get that.
Let's change the verbiage. What do you think? How about instead of terrible, we'll say necessary?
Yeah. But I don't think that a lot of people can grasp that just yet. And I hope, with the changes that we talked about in society, being more vulnerable and okay sharing feelings, maybe those necessary moments will be celebrated.
I think we have to challenge each other. And I think that's why I did that Facebook Live. We have to challenge each other to be willing to be vulnerable. We have to challenge each other to ask the hard questions. And we have to challenge each other to look and find positives and negatives, and not just allow people to sit in the negative all the time, because the mindset is a majority of the solution or the problem, right? And if we ask people those hard questions, and if we're our friends, if we ask our friends those hard questions, and we allow them the space, right? You have to have the space. Hopefully people gave you the space to revisit many times if you needed to, and find those answers. That's the important part, I think, is finding that space.
Yeah. People are very uncomfortable. Some people are just very closed off, and they haven't found that space yet to be okay with not being okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing, especially because I'm sure there was some part of that dark space where you were grieving the life that you had plotted in your head as a child, and, what your future was going to be. And if you hadn't sat in that and asked the tough questions of yourself, you'd probably be in a different place right now.
True. Absolutely true.
But you gave yourself, it's so easy to stick in that negative space.
It is.
Do you agree?
Fear. Yeah.
It's like, but it's so weird to think this is a terrible place. Like, think about, I don't know if you've ever faced depression. I have. And when you are depressed, it is 1000% easier, or me, to stay depressed, to stay in that space, than it is to work my way out of it and to challenge it. And what I've learned, at this age, what I've learned is that I have to honor it. I have to honor that depressed feeling, or whatever it is. If I'm having a rough day, I have to say, I'm having a rough day, and that is okay. And I'm going to honor it for this amount of time, and then I'm going to carry on.
Right. You can't stay there.
You can't.
Yeah.
But the early version of me, it was just easier to stay there.
Yeah.
And not think about what was the underlying reason, but rather just like, I feel this way.
Right.
So many people are afraid of that. And I don't know. I think your video was just so impactful for someone that, like myself, that had no real connection to the illness or the diagnosis. I don't think anyone in my family knowingly has MS, but something about your video and the raw emotion in it was just so impactful. And I'll always remember that. And I can't believe it was that long ago.
Yeah, I know. It was when I first moved to Hawaii. So it was a year. I think it was a year to date of being diagnosed. And I mean, my hope is that I give people with this diagnosis a new face, a new a new way to look at it. And even people that don't have it, even people that aren't faced with this, I honestly, and this is going to sound so crazy, just bear with me. Bear with me.
I'm here.
I think I gave myself this disease. If you think about this, if you truly think about it, right, that all the stress and all the anxiety and all the abuse, the whatever it is leading up until that time, it stores in your body. You know, you're being consumed with that depression, that darkness, and it's not going anywhere. You're just ignoring it. And it causes these issues in your body. I mean, if you truly sit down and think about it, you know, your body is, you know, those phrases, your body is a temple, and honor your body, and your body is a communicating vessel to you. And like if you have shoulder pain, you know, oh my gosh, they say don't carry the burden of the world on your shoulders. I mean, you're super stressed out, you have tight shoulders. If you think about it, all of these things added up and were telling me, screaming at me, Mo, wake up. Stop being so consumed with all these things that are harming you, or you're focused on too much. Pay attention. Start taking care of yourself.
It like made you slam on the brakes.
Yes, it made you slam on the brakes. It was a yes.
Honestly, as you explain it, I don't think it sounds that crazy. I think we've heard stories in which people's diagnoses are based on the stressful lives that they lead and the pressures that they or society or both put on them. Mostly they put on themselves based on what society's expectations seemingly were or are.
Yeah.
So I don't think it sounds that crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you can depression, right? We are not saying like it's not to take anything away from any disease or blame yourself. You shouldn't blame yourself for anything that
Right.
happens to you in that fashion. I mean, take some responsibility with it. Like, how did I get here? Well, I was 200 pounds. I wasn't working out. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was stressed beyond reason. There were so many things, and I had to look at it and go, I am a little responsible here, and my body is telling me, you need to wake up and pay attention to us and you. And, you know, we are not as kind as we should be to ourselves. It goes back to this.
It really, self-care is so important. And I'm so glad that people are talking about mental health, and they're talking about, you know, and it's maybe someday it won't be so stigmatized. God, and,
yeah.
You know, like, it's like,
in the military,
there's a lot going on.
I mean, you have to, in the military, there are people still to this day, and there are so many people that need to speak to a mental health professional, but there's such a stigmatism about it that, you know, oh, I'm not as good of a soldier. I'm not good enough, and I can't go talk to somebody. It needs more attention. You're right. 100% needs more attention.
Well, and the truth of the matter for most people is that after mental health professional, you know, speaking with someone, a therapist, a counselor, whatever, you become a better version of yourself and a better worker. You're a better, you know, your attention is focused. That almost doesn't make sense to me as someone that has spoken to someone before, you know, is to say, well, no, I'm not going to be as good, or I'm not going to be seen as good. It's like, you will probably be better.
Right. Yeah. It's that, why do you need help? Well, I mean, we can't do everything on our own.
If my AC is broken, I'm not fixing that.
Right. You're calling yeah, me too. I mean, come on. Like, and you're employing people, for goodness sakes. Like, there's no reason we need to. There's a reason they've been put here. They're serving their purpose. Let's allow them to serve their purpose. I'm not a therapist either. I agree with you.
But you know what? There is something to be said about having conversations like this with your friends or whatever, of just like being totally present and honest about where you are at that moment. And yes, we're not therapists, but we can help each other in a therapeutic way.
True.
By just listening, by speaking, sharing our truth, where we're at that moment. So
giving them space.
Yeah.
Giving them space.
Yeah. And not feeling like, I feel like our generation has this as well, is that we feel oftentimes that we have to have a solution for everything.
Yeah.
And most of the time when I need to share something, I don't need advice. I don't need any of that.
You just want someone to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And empathize, right? So you want somebody, I think you're right. I mean, that's hitting on two very distinct characteristics of that is no judgment and then empathy. And if you can have those two things in that space, it's so healing. And you're right. I mean, you don't necessarily need a healthcare professional, but the people around you have to be able to give, and those are the people that give you that, right? The therapist, that's what they're trained to do, is give you the space, give you the empathy, and then help. If you want the resources, they give you the resources. But your friends are there, and they don't charge you $200 an hour.
Yeah, no copays.
No copays.
Well, maybe like a sangria.
Right? And yeah, your friends. But that's the thing too. We gotta, I don't know, I've culled my friend list quite a bit, if you look back. And have you culled your friend list?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all goes to self-awareness and acceptance of what you need and what other people need from you. And if those align, then I think that friendship can last. And I think maybe that's a normal process of just aging in general when it comes to friendships, especially for those people that are a little bit more self-aware of what they need and to protect themselves. And, there's certain things you just don't need.
Amen. Good grief. Yes, you're so truly correct. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I can tell you that the way I showed up and what I thought I needed about 5 years ago is completely different than what I need and how I show up today. And gosh, if I could just, I always say that, you don't want to go back, but if I could just let myself in on the little secret just 5 years ago, I wonder what kind of,
what would you say?
What would I say? 5 years ago, I would probably tell myself that love is law, judgment-free zone, follow your intuition, and find balance. Yeah.
Do you think that at that moment you would have listened?
I think I would have taken myself a little more serious at that moment. Yeah. These are such simple things that I think when people use more words, you lose the importance of the ones that really matter.
Yeah. Do you think that the 7-year ago version of you would have listened to those things?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I hadn't had enough wax.
Yeah, just all it takes is one big whack and you'll stop and you'll think.
I don't know though. I mean, I think it depends on where you are in the time and space, Matt, though. I've had some big whacks. I've had some really big whacks.
That's true. Fair enough. Maybe you just need to accumulate a few and then you hit that space. But I think we're a product of the experiences that we've had, and all we can do is the best we can do at that moment in time is what we know, right? And so, you almost had to go through those moments to get to this place. So you did have to go through these tough moments to get to where you are now.
Absolutely.
And I think that's true of everybody.
It is. And I think the other piece to this that's just as important is we have to understand that there's probably going to be more.
Mm-hmm.
And now we just have to put every practice into play, right? And be more mindful. Yeah.
I agree completely. And I actually feel that I was able to do that. When my mom died, I was 8. And in that instance, and I've said this before on this podcast, but it took me a good 20 years to grieve the loss of my mother in various ways, and certain things that I use as crutches and excuses and whatever that may be. But it took roughly 20 years. And then when my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer and eventually passed away from it, I took what I learned from taking forever to do and what I needed to do next time, if there was a next time. And I was able to literally jump, head first into grief and into what my grief journey looks like. And I was able to move through it much quicker. And so, yes, knowing that there's going to be something else that's coming. And if we can be wise enough to take what we've learned and move forward in as much of a positive way as we can, we become better people because of it. And so I agree completely, because I feel that I was thankful enough that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was intentional, but I felt thankful enough that I was able to.
Well, again, your message is your message. And so that there's something to be said about that too, Matt. You're able to then turn around and help somebody else with some tools that they necessarily wouldn't have if they hadn't also gone through the same journey. And so now you're able to offer other people a service of some sort, if not a service, the space and the empathy, right? And the no judgment. And you're able to help others through that as well. And that right there, if that's not the whole reason, the biggest reason for anything, if you can't find anything else, right? If you can't find any positives anywhere else, if you can find that, the fact that you can then help somebody else not have to feel or go through everything you did or with better tools, then, oh my gosh.
But again, honestly, I look back to your same point though, I had to go through it all that way. That first time was intentional.
Yeah.
Whether I made those choices or not, I did, and it was for a reason. And I like to look back on that, thinking that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just delusional.
No,
or if that's just...
I think you're right. I mean, what I believe, they're called contracts, and you have to fulfill a contract, and that's part of the contract with yourself. Is that's the only way you figured out you can achieve what's on the other side of it, is you had to go through it. And I agree, you do. But if somebody could have offered me just a few simple words a little earlier on, then maybe I could have escaped just a little portion of it, or maybe made it a little bit easier to lean on somebody. I had nobody to lean on. I had nobody. And if I had somebody to lean on, it surely would have been, I don't know about you, but I mean, it would have been a little more manageable. It would have been a little more loving.
Well, and I'm sure that that's what you did for people with just that video and sharing your story, and that someone may have watched it, and without you even knowing, you provided them the space or some tool to know that, one, they're not alone, but two, you can make this work however is authentic for you and what feels the best. If we're not saying, or I'm not saying at least, that what the doctor tells you to do is wrong, but it might not be your path. Right. And so, you got to find that and find the right people and the support to kind of get through.
And what you're doing is huge, Matt. Congratulations, because you're putting a whole library of support in here for people.
I mean, my goal is not necessarily that. It's just to provide that space, like you said, and create that empathy that we're not that different, guys. We're human, right? And so we have pretty much all the same emotions, and we all go through a mess, and
the human experience.
Right. And if we can hear how someone else went through the mess, maybe that'll make our mess a little less messy, But I want to talk about the things that you've done for yourself since that moment, because your life has completely changed.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of positives. I'm sure there are some things that are, tough still.
Yeah.
But share a little bit.
Well, I went to my husband and I said, to the meatiest, cheesiest eater you've ever found in your life. I'm going to be a vegan. You don't have to come on this journey, but I need to do it. Part of treating MS naturally is your diet and reducing the inflammation. And so I 100% went into that conversation thinking I'll be making 5 meals. Technically, I think 3 at that point, 3 different meals. And he just said, nope, we're going to all do it together. If you're doing it, we're doing it. And I thought, wow, that's profound. All right, we're going to all do this. And then in Hawaii, I said, now we're all going gluten-free then. And he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. But he came along on the journey. So we changed our diet dramatically. And I think that was the catalyst to the rest of it. I started treating myself in a very natural forum. I got rid of a ton of toxins in my house, the products I use on my body. I started doing natural treatments. I started meditating, yoga, mindset. Mindset was incredible for this journey. I think it was the pinnacle to the pyramid of my last piece. I started with eating, so I started with the body, and then I went into the mind, and now the soul has basically what's opened up. And I started on this incredible spiritual journey through all of it, just from being diagnosed with MS. I'm just a completely different person. I don't do much material things anymore. I find joy in the little things. Yeah, it's very hard to really pinpoint. My family would say she's hippie now. She's a hippie.
Because you're just in touch with who you are and what you want to bring to the world and what you want the world to provide for you and your family.
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
What do you see?
Yeah. I see. I mean, you look glowing. You look happy.
Yeah.
You look
Thanks.
Like a completely different person from that video.
Yes. I'm almost scared to go back and watch it.
I would. Yeah. I would go back because I think it provides some perspective. Yeah. It also, maybe it's a moment in which you're like, maybe I haven't changed too much. And then you go back and you watch that and your soul's just different. You emanate different light, and I think it's wonderful. I hate that was your trigger, but I mean, maybe it seems that you're grateful for that.
So grateful. Yeah. It's to live a completely different life. I would call it the dark night, and people call it the dark night of the soul, where are you aware? You're aware. Oh my God. It's awful and awesome all at once. Holy crap. You talk about breaking down every bit of your being. The way I describe it to people that just don't understand is it's like you have this house that you think is beautiful. You've, decorated it and built it, and it's your dream home, right? And then all of a sudden you just break that sucker down to the foundation. And then when you break it down, dark night of the soul, your journey will then build it back up. You build new walls. You figure out where you want new rooms, what they look like, how they're decorated now. You figure out what's important, what's not important, what you need in your life, what you don't need in your life. You completely rebuild your life from the ground up. Yeah. And so it threw me into the dark night of the soul. And thankfully, it's been a 2-year journey. I think I'm finally on the other end of it. And it's a doozy. It's a doozy. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always feel this way about, grief or probably the dark night of the soul. You have to be ready to do it.
Oh.
You can't be forced into it. You can't, because you can be forced into it, but good luck.
I was forced into it.
Producing something. Right.
I was actually, I think subconsciously I was ready, but I didn't know what the hell was happening to me. And mine was quite like smack in the face. This is happening. You're breaking everything down tonight, girlfriend. I mean, it wasn't a night, but it was an extremely short period of time where you just watched. It's like watching a tree just lose everything and then eventually just die to root. And it happened so fast because I think it was just like, you're subconsciously, you're ready for this. You know, you've gone through MS, you've transformed your body, you're trying to get your mind straight. It's the soul's turn. And it basically, it was, yeah, I didn't think I was ready. I understand now I was.
I guess I don't necessarily mean that you have to be ready to go through it, but you have to be ready to get out of it, or, you know, positively ask yourself the right questions, build that up. Because as we said before, it's so easy to just stay there, or, you know, in some people's cases, just get stuck there and not emerge.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, it seems that your subconscious, or just all the things you had gone through and that collection of experiences, allowed you to process properly and to build that house back up the way that you wanted to.
It's like a tiny home now. It's very nice.
Have you ever read the book The Glass House?
No. Do I need to read that one?
By, I think her name is Jeanette Wells. It's not completely related, but part of me thinks that when, I don't know that I've attached a moment to the Dark Night of the Soul, but it almost sounds like when you rebuild that house, you would almost feel comfortable building a glass house.
Yes.
In which
yes,
anyone can see whatever's happening. And
yeah, Matt.
I don't know why I made that connection.
Because it's the right connection for people to hear it right now. And I just got all the goosey bumps. I got all my truth bumps because that was perfect. You're right. 100 freaking million trillion % right, Matt. You're right. It should be glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let everyone see it.
You're right. Let your freak flag fly.
Right. I mean, I might have some walls in my shower in my bathroom, but other than that, give me some space. But,
okay, true. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but imagine if everyone had no shame.
Right.
Not shame. I don't know
Fear
if that's
of
the
judgment.
right word, but fear of judgment is better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
To have this glass house of, here's who I am.
Right.
And I am happy in whatever mess that I'm in right now, because I know that this mess is part of it.
Yeah.
What did you say? The mess is your message?
The mess is your message.
I love it.
Your mess is your message. What you've gone through in your life is exactly what you're supposed to speak on and help others and be in service to others with. That is just like love is law, right? Your mess is your message. If you're willing, right, to share the message, if you're willing to serve with the message, if you're willing to give the message, but it's why you're here. It's your purpose. It's your purpose in life. It is.
Honestly, I don't think there's a better way to end this episode with what you just said, talking about your mess is your message. I admire you, my friend. You are helping so many other people by just sharing your story and being so authentic, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And it feels super good showing up with all of those thoughts that do flow through my mind, but the fact that you can see it just tells me I am being authentic, and yeah, damn, it feels good.
It's so good to see you.
Thanks. It's good to see you too. Thank you so much for doing this for everybody and for having me on.
Yes, and thanks for being a part of the Life Shift podcast, and we will see you next time. You've just listened to the Life Shift podcast. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information about how you can support the Life Shift podcast, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. See you next time.